Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon, FBA, private label, and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, your host, founder, and CEO of Ecomcy. And today we bring another special guest. His name is Mike Begg, and he's the co-founder of AMZ Advisers and also Go Avance. And the reason why he's here is because we were talking before going live about a very interesting topic, which is expansion in Latin America. This is something that I'm very close to because, as you all know, I grew up in Venezuela. So Latin America for me is very close to my heart. And talking about this topic and how we can help international brands enter this basically region sounds super interesting. I'm sure you're gonna learn a lot. So, Mike, it's a pleasure to have you today on the podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Vincenzo. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure. I've been following what you've been doing, with both companies for a while now. I know you guys have a ton of experience when it comes to Amazon, but also other marketplaces such as Walmart and Mercado Libre. And it's super interesting to know the new model you guys have going on with Go Advance in terms of supporting international brands entering the Latin American region. Because whenever I have a conversation with an American brand or a European brand, the first question that comes to me is like, yeah, but how I'm gonna navigate all the issues in terms of the legal side, the taxes, the entering. And I'm sure that's something we're gonna be covering today, and that your company can basically support with that. But before we jump into that, I think was something I like to do on my guests just to give some context is tell us a little bit about you, who is Mike, how you jump into the Amazon space, and basically how you founded these companies. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I am Mike. I am originally from Connecticut in the U.S. I grew up there pretty much my entire life. I got into e-commerce through one of the jobs that I was working in. So I actually worked in real estate development for Sears, which was a major retailer at the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't even exist in the U.S. anymore.
It's
But
not because of you. It's
anyway,
not because of you.
started doing that type of stuff, understanding how retail works. So I started doing that. And what happened was while I was doing real estate development, we got a deal offer for a property that we had at an abandoned mall by Amazon.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, why is Amazon buying a mall? And then we started digging into it more and more, and learned about FBA and the ability to sell your own products. Got into doing retail arbitrage, then private label. Eventually started AMZ Advisers, which is an Amazon agency, Amazon specific agency. And during that time, I actually ended up moving to Mexico. It's where my wife is from and where I live now. I've been there for 6 years, and it kind of opened my eyes up to how e-commerce works in Latin America. And that's kind of where the idea for Go Advance came from, and helping brands get into Latin America, but also helping consumers get access to more products.
Awesome. Love it. I think I'm in Latin America, and I've been looking at the studies and the numbers. It keeps growing year after year. We even see Amazon, already planning to open Amazon Colombia and Chile. So definitely a huge interest from the big players to enter in the space. I guess some of the things that are making the region very difficult to enter is all the bureaucracy around, like, documentation, taxes, logistics. Those three things are a killer for most business. So I guess let's start with that. Like, what are some of the things you guys have put in place to navigate these issues, and how some now international brands, for example, could use people like you to enter some of these regions that before you have to do on your own? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that is probably the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Latin America is bureaucracy, red tape, getting through that type of stuff. And I've had to go through it myself by dealing with it here in Mexico, and to a lesser extent, Brazil. But Brazil is a whole nother nightmare. So
I know.
when we look at these platforms or these countries, these marketplaces, I should say, the first challenge that most brands face, and why most brands avoid it, is obviously language. It's difficult for a lot of US or foreign brands that are not Spanish speaking or do not have Spanish team members to help them navigate just the language communication challenges. So I think that's the first thing that scares a lot of people away. Another thing that I think also keeps a lot of people away is the difference in the legal system. Obviously, the
Yes.
U.S. is based on common law. Latin America is based on civil law, so it's codified. There's a very big difference in how things work.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of adjusting, a little bit of getting used to. Even I catch myself sometimes in Mexico, like, well, why is that this way? Like, why can't we? It's so much easier to do it, and like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just the way things
It
work.
is what it is.
So you can't fight it. But the other challenge is it's just very difficult for brands to get in here into these marketplaces because you need to start a business in pretty much every country you're in. And when we're talking about the legal challenges, the language challenges, some of the other obstacles that come with starting a business, most brands just see that and they're like, you know what, I don't want to go through this right now.
Yeah. I think just to touch on your first point, I think the language is super important. But on top of that, I'm sure you know this because you live in Latin America. People from abroad may assume that we speak the same Spanish across all the countries in Latin America, but it's completely different. If you go to Mexico and then to Colombia, the pronunciation is different. Some of the slang is different. The way you structure sentences, like, yes, in the context of Spanish, you can understand them, but the way you optimize a product and all of that is completely different. So I'm sure that's one of the challenges you also been experiencing, right?
Yeah, I mean, language localization is extremely important. And it's just
crazy,
funny that you bring that up because certain accents, I mean, I'm fluent in Spanish, but certain accents I struggle with. And one of them is actually Venezolano.
Yes.
It's actually a very tough one for me. But yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. Like, you got to make sure that you're having your content make sense. I think the Spanish we generally learn in the US is Castilian, which is what all Latin American Spanish is based off of. But like you just said, there's so many different intricacies. The vocabulary is completely different for some words between countries. Verbs have extremely different meanings between some countries, between Argentina and the rest of the world, especially. So it's very interesting in navigating some of those challenges and doing it as a foreigner.
Yeah, and now going back to the legal side of things, I'm sure you mentioned an interesting thing there that is like every single time you enter one of these countries, you essentially have to open a new company. And for some people, this might sound as a surprise because we know, let's say you expand to Europe, you can use your American company to expand to regions such as Europe. So could you just high level, without getting too technical, is there a reason why some of these countries don't allow you to use your American company, for example? Or is there some tax incentives or something like that, high level? Yeah.
I can't say exactly what the reasons are, but I know what the challenges of not having one are. So, like, for example, there's shortcuts where you can bring the product into the country. There's like the NARF program from Amazon.
Exactly.
There's global selling from Mercado Libre. Those are just taking advantage of loopholes per se.
Exactly.
So there's some loopholes that say if the product's under $50, there's no, you don't have to deal with taxes, or the customer deals with taxes. When you're bringing in significant amounts of product, like if you wanted to sell locally in the market, you can't get on to Amazon FBA, you can't get on to Mercado Libre's Mercado Full, that's their FBA equivalent, unless you have a local tax ID. So I can't explain exactly what the reasons are on why
it's depending on the volume. It's depending on the volume, of course.
Exactly. So it is one of the challenges. And again, another challenge with starting a business is a lot of times you need to have a partner. So in Mexico, you need to have a Mexican business partner. In Brazil, you need to have a Brazilian business partner. And if you don't know people from those marketplaces, it can be extremely challenging. Yeah. Like, how are you going to trust some random person that you
random guy. Yeah.
So that's a big issue that a lot of brands face as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, when it comes to this expansion, I guess you have also identified that certain categories do better than others in this region, right? Because of the behavior in this region and so on. So, based on your experience, what are some of the categories you see are very hot right now in Latin America in terms of, if somebody's listening and watching this and say, oh, I'm within that category, so maybe Latin America could be a big potential for me. Yeah.
So we work pretty closely with Mercado Libre, actually. And there's a big push both from Mercado Libre and from Amazon. I mean, Amazon has already started auto-enrolling brands into
Yeah,
NARF, even though they don't want it.
exactly. Forcing
NARF,
it.
yeah, they're forcing it. And NARF has way higher fees than normal FBA fees. So
Yeah.
I think most brands don't realize that. But anyway, the point is that I forgot the point
That's
actually.
fine. We can cut it. Don't worry. So we are basically talking about which categories are the
Categories.
hottest.
Yeah. Okay. So we work pretty closely with Mercado Libre, and they actually give us some insights into what categories are selling the best in Latin America. And there's a variety of different reasons, but what we find have the most demand are number one, consumer electronics has a massive demand, and there's a couple of reasons for that I'll explain in a minute. Supplements and cosmetics. Those are really good categories for Latin America because of a lot of restrictions that are in place. So for example, any cosmetic and any supplement brand, this is another challenge, is that they have to be approved by the local authority in each country. Yeah. So it's Cofepris in Mexico, and I'm blanking on the name of the entity in Brazil. So anything that's topical, anything that you're going to ingest, that has to be approved by the FDA equivalent. And the other challenge with consumer electronics is that almost every country in Latin America has tariffs or bans on Chinese goods. So China is obviously known for consumer electronic manufacturing, and like that category is pretty dominated in the US. When you look at it. There's a lot of protectionism in Latin America for those brands. So I think it's Brazil, actually. It's either Brazil or Colombia that has a complete outright ban on importing Chinese goods into the country. So it gives a lot of opportunity to US brands that might be manufacturing locally, even European brands that might be manufacturing locally or manufacturing in other countries.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to taking consideration all these complexities, would you say then the best approach to test a Latin American market is, let's say I have a beauty brand, right, and I want to test Mexico, right? Given the fact that I will have to go through all these friction point that we're touching on, and let's say I'm based in USA, would you advise first to test the market, let's say with something such as NARF, to see if the demand is there? Or you always advise going, sending 300, 500 units directly and doing everything correctly and test it out? Like, how do I even test the product could perform? Because I guess a lot of people say, yes, okay, I want to eat all the struggle, but would it actually make sense? Like, how do I get a flavor before putting all the investment? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see exactly your point. And that's another huge barrier to entry right there, is how do you test it? So
there's not even tools. That's another thing. There's not a lot of tools. So
exactly. So there's a very big problem with NARF. There's a very big problem with Mercado Full's global, or Mercado's global selling. I forgot the name for a second. The products on Amazon specifically, when you are using the NARF program and I'm shopping in Mexico, the product has a tag that says importación. It means the product is being imported from the US. And it's very common for that to show up, but that actually has a negative impact on conversion rates. So for example, if I am buying a product from the US and it says importación, it's more than likely that not included within the price that I'm seeing on Amazon, there's going to be additional fees for tariffs, for shipping, for customs, all the clearance and everything. There's been times, this is one time where I bought a monitor from the US, a computer monitor to connect my laptop to. And the price, it was on Black Friday. The deal was good. It was like, I think it was like $120 for a 30-inch monitor or something.
Okay. Good.
I was like, awesome, this is going to be great. The product shows up and I got a tax bill for another $80. So literally the product all the savings are gone. I could have bought it cheaper here in Mexico at that point, but it's one of the challenges. So like when I see importación, and I think a lot of Mexican shoppers specifically, and Brazilians as well, see that tag, they know that there's associated fees with it. And because of that, they don't purchase those products as much. So not only is it going to lower your conversion rates on your NARF products, it's going to be misleading knowing that your product could be selling better if the product was in country. And I think that's where GoAvance helps a lot, is that we help these brands get into Latin America without having to go through all
The
the
hustle. Yeah.
challenges of starting up a business and everything. We receive the inventory, we sell that on their behalf, and then we can actually see whether it makes sense for them to continue to invest into the platform or into the marketplace,
Nice.
or to continue to work with other options, or maybe
Yeah.
not focus on Latin America in general.
Good. So essentially, it's like you become their Amazon vendor, kind of. You buy their stock from there, and you represent them through your Seller Central account on in these specific markets, right? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And it allows, it's the best of both worlds, because not only are we able to get these brands into Amazon,
Fast. Yeah.
we're able to get them onto Mercado Libre, we're able to get them on Walmart, Liverpool, Copo, Lojas Americanas,
Nice.
Casa Bahia, pretty much every platform that you're going to be selling on in Latin America. And we can figure out this platform works, this platform doesn't.
Yeah.
It's opening up the potential reach you can get for your products significantly more, because Amazon in Latin America isn't necessarily the biggest platform. In Brazil, it's the third largest platform. In Mexico, it's tied for number one with Mercado Libre, more or less. So if you're not on these other platforms, you're losing a huge amount of reach as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And now another thing I have also identified in Latin America, you have to be careful with price points, because of course the purchase power in these regions is lower compared to our regions. So have you identified any trends, like if you're selling something above $50, you're gonna struggle, or over $100? Is that something that you see, or realistically price has not been an issue in this region?
There's some nuances here. I mean, in some instances where there's just not product availability, there's some categories where there's no competition, or there's no products that even exist
So
for what you're looking for.
you set the price essentially. Yeah.
If people want it, they're going to have to buy it because they don't have any other options. But that being said, there are other challenges with some countries if you're going to be selling. So Brazil is a very good example of this. If your product is over $50, there's a significant amount of taxes that come into play. So once you cross that $50 threshold, the tax rates are 60 to 90% of what the product is coming in. So it's incredibly high. So being under $50 is great, but at the same time, if your product is in a category where there's not much competition now, you can really start pretty much dominating that niche on whatever e-commerce platforms almost immediately, because there's really no other competition.
Yeah. And being said that, the fact that some of these categories have no competition and it's easy to enter, will you say then that when it comes to launching and positioning a product in Latin America is very easy compared to our regions? Like, are you seeing, like, if you bring strategies from Europe or USA, that we really need to compete day in, day out to make it? Like in Mexico, you will be flying. Is that what you see in terms of how trained the sellers are in that region, basically?
In most instances, I would say yes. I would also say that the cost of advertising is significantly lower than what we see in the US and Europe. And that's another big factor. For example, like cost per clicks, we do a lot of work in supplements on the AMZ Advisors side and also on the Go Event side. Cost per clicks in the US for words like protein can be $20 or more per click.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, you would lose money every single time. Yeah,
exactly. And while you're looking at that, the cost per clicks in Mexico might be $2. So you're looking at essentially 10% of the cost of getting the brand out there. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that advertising competition is much lower. And one of the other benefits of that is that well-capitalized US or European companies that are looking to get into these markets are competing against brands that are local and that are maybe not as well capitalized or not as informed on e-commerce and not as willing to spend money on the advertising side. So it's another big advantage that a lot of foreign brands have here, is like, if you're willing to invest the advertising dollars into niches that are uncompetitive or niches that you can dominate, it's very easy to become one of the top sellers almost immediately.
Good. Now, when you enter these markets as well, I guess a lot of people have to make the decision so they don't spread too thin in terms of which market to go for, either Amazon or Mercado Libre or other ones like Liverpool and so on. So, being said that, like, what is your advice? Like, let's say a brand is coming for the first time into Latin America, where you are seeing the highest rate of success when it comes to e-commerce? Would it be Amazon? Would it be Mercado Libre? What is your take on that?
I would say most foreign brands see the most success on Amazon to begin with, because the
Mhm.
Mercado Libre platform works a little bit differently. I think when we look at Amazon, every product is ranked based on the factors of that
Ex-
product.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for us to push more
Understand.
advertising, push more
Yeah.
sales. On Mercado Libre, it's based on the seller's reputation. So if you're a
Mm.
new seller, it's very hard for your products to actually start ranking. But if you're
Okay.
an established seller and you've been generating sales for an extended period of time, whenever you launch a new product beyond that, it starts
It gets
ranking a
high.
lot faster. Yeah. So that's, I would say most foreign brands see more success on Amazon just because Mercado Libre takes a little bit more time if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And also we need to mention that, for example, in Mercado Libre, you cannot even do your own PPC. It just basically like eBay. You just give a range and then you don't know what happens, a black box, compared to Amazon that you can be very strategic with the keywords that you target and so on. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of where looking at outside traffic or other platforms to push traffic to Mercado Libre and start pushing those sales initially becomes extremely important, because then you have the ability to get a lot more granular to actually implement new advertising strategies, and you start seeing a little bit more success that way.
Awesome, awesome. So now, in terms of, I guess strategy, when it comes to launching to these markets, we already discussed, of course, the frictions and then the advertisements sometimes high level in terms of the PPC is much cheaper. But would you say besides that, when clients are bringing their products to Latin America, should they also adapt their strategy in terms of external traffic? Like, are you seeing external traffic being big in Latin America, like still using influencer, blogs, newsletter, or you think that still with the level of exposure you can get only within Amazon PPC is enough to really get the ball rolling? Like, what is your take on that one?
I would say, specific to Amazon, I would say PPC is enough to get the ball
Okay.
rolling with the Amazon platform.
Hmm.
With Mercado Libre and some of the other platforms, influencer is very successful down here as well.
Okay.
Because I mean, Latin America is pretty much a mobile first economy. So most people are
Exactly.
used to
Yeah.
just being on their cell phones. So if
Yeah.
they're hitting Instagram, if they're hitting, Twitter, TikTok, whatever other platforms, if you're reaching them through influencers there's a good chance that you're going to get brand discovery, product discovery.
Hmm.
People are going to come searching for it on other platforms. The
Hmm.
cost of influencers is also a little bit lower here in Latin America than the US. So I do believe that outside traffic is beneficial. And then obviously Google Ads is also cheaper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do believe it is beneficial to use outside traffic to really help some of the stores start running
Awesome.
smoother.
Awesome. So now, I'm sure by now a lot of the listeners and the ones watching would be interested to, understand if they will be a good fit for this type of setup that you guys offer at GoAdvance. So tell me a little bit about what is the criteria that will define the right candidate for you guys. Like, are you guys specializing as of now, specific categories, specific revenue? How you make sure you can give the biggest chance of success to somebody that want to enter into these regions? Yeah.
For sure. I mean, we focus on a few specific product categories.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the best categories to focus on for us are consumer electronics,
Mm-hmm.
beauty, supplements, health and personal care, pet supplies, baby products, even toys. Those are probably the ones where we're going to see the most success. There's a lot of demand for those types of products down here.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say, like, the other benefit or the other requirements to really be successful here is that you're probably going to need to send us somewhere between 5 to 1,000 units to be able to
Mm-hmm.
actually start getting the traction over time that we're
Yeah.
going to need. Obviously, dedicate some advertising budget. Doesn't need to
Exactly.
be as much as the US. You probably need to be spending between 1 to 2,000 a month to really
Yeah.
start
To
seeing
get
the
the ball rolling.
traction. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
just start getting it going. And I mean, the other great thing with working with our company is that it's commission based. So we only take
Nice.
a percentage of what we sell. So it makes it a lot more efficient. We can actually boost your margins as well compared to what you're paying in the US because of the cost of advertising, because of the fees, because a lot of these other challenges. So it's really a win-win for brands that are in those categories, have a little bit of money to invest, and have the inventory to give it a shot.
Good. And based on your experience, I know this is gonna change drastically based on the category and type of product. But usually, how long it takes for a brand to go from zero to reaching out to actually be selling on Mexico, let's say, like, and seeing some sales, like, what is the timeline you're usually seeing with your processes, yeah, and everything?
Yeah, for our clients, we can get them up and selling from the time that they start working with us within 2 months.
Okay,
Can be as
nice.
fast as 1 month, depending on how
Yeah, the
fast your
complexity of the
warehouse
product as well.
is, yeah, and
Yeah.
everything. The approvals as well. That's another good point.
Mhm.
But it could be as fast as 1 month, but usually within 2 months, you're up and selling.
Okay, cool. And I guess you guys also help with everything in terms of figuring out if the product is compliant, if you need to change the packaging, all that kind of stuff. Very nice.
Yep, we do all the product compliance. We help with all the logistics, customs, fulfillment within country, fiscal challenges. All of that type of stuff is
All the
handled by
headaches.
us. All the headaches, yeah. You just get in and just start getting money. That's generally the benefit for
And
most
get a
brands.
margarita afterwards. Good. Nice. So I guess as my last question, is there anything else you think in terms of strategy or struggles that we should bring to the table before we end the episode? Like something maybe you feel we miss that you would like to share with the audience before we finish the episode?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think while Amazon in the US continues to get more and more expensive, there's more ad placements, more ad supply, brands are spending more dollars on acquiring customers there. You need to find other ways to make your brand more profitable. And I think global expansion is a really good way to do that. Working on the European marketplaces is one way to do that, but also getting into markets that are developing, that are growing fast, and that are not that competitive, like the markets in Latin America, present a lot of opportunities to the brands that are the first movers on getting in here.
Yeah. Awesome. Very nice. So tell me a little bit, Mike, about how people can reach out in case they want to ask you any questions or your team, how people can get a hold of you. Yeah.
Of course, the best way to reach out to us is directly through our website, goavance.com, or you can reach me directly at my email, mike@goavance.com.
Awesome, Mike. So it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon. Maybe one of these trips that I go often now to Mexico. I see you there,
Awesome.
and we can talk further. Yeah. So it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Vincenzo. It was great talking with you.
Take care, man. Bye bye.